Tonight is Thursday, April 20th. It's a meeting of the Acushnet Lake Street Improvement Committee. Is there a motion to call the meeting to order? Is there a second? All those in favor? Motion carries. Great. Well, thank you all for being here. This is a long time in the works, and a lot of the things that you're seeing that we approved, I think it was in 2020, 2021, but we found out that the city of New Bedford owns all of this property. So there were some legal things that we had to go through with the city, and so it took some time, but it got done. And so thanks to Mayor Mitchell and Linda Morad, the City Council President, and New Bedford City Council for doing that, and Scott Daggett, who really was the driver of this project, a few years ago. And so once we got the approvals, and trying to get the window of when Dan Menard and the DPW would be available with other road projects, I kind of made an executive decision with the board and just move forward with the plans that were already approved, right? And so we'll walk through some of the things, but you can see, the pavement, asphalt, sidewalks, which will then be guardrailed. So wherever you see sidewalks, there'll be guardrails there to make things obviously much safer. Dan's done some trying to define the boat ramps. Hey, how are you?
Yeah, you don't put the lights.
Brad, right?
Yeah, I'm Brad.
Brad happens to live up the he's a homeowner up the way, and so in addition to that, I don't know if anybody's been around there, but there's actually a lot of defined trails along like South Pond and making its way across to here. And so Dan's done a lot of clearing there. They still got more to do, but I think his plan is to wood chip it all, to have it defined. And so really, I think call it phase 1 is almost complete. Phase 2 and 3, I think this will be like always an ongoing improvement, are some of the things that we've put under new business tonight. In addition, we've got Jack, what's the last name again? Jack Sidar from Coalition for Buzzards Bay. The coalition has agreed to help us with some signage.
Oh, they did? Okay, awesome. I reached out to Erin, and she said something about how you guys had projects going on, and she sounded like it couldn't be done right now, sort of thing, but I'm glad.
Yeah, so, at least to get that conversation started, to talk about signage for, what kind of species are here, the history of the water, and you guys have done such a great job, around the South Coast doing that in a really elegant way, right? I think some of the things that we've talked about is to have signage to talk about like the depths of the water, right? Again, that's kind of about the safety, the importance of boaters washing off their, part of weed remediation is making sure that there's proper boat and kayak and canoe hygiene, right? And simple things of let's not do forest, let's not make campfires, right? Some basic things, but I think will go a long way to make this a place where it's not only to relax, but also there can be some educational opportunities here and run programs. I don't know, as creative as people can be. If somebody wanted to do a yoga class out here, right? Whatever it is, it'll be a lot of things to a lot of people. And I think there's some unique opportunity to have some fun things. I know I've done a lot of the talking, but just from a committee's perspective, any thoughts of where we are right now, how you guys feel about things? So I'll open up the floor.
I think it's going well. I mean, Dan's done a great job.
Yeah.
Is there an idea on when they're going to start the guardrails?
I think within the next week or so. We've identified a vendor, and Dan's done a really good job of really drilling down on price and cost. So it'll be a combination of us doing a lot of the actual work itself, like prepping and getting it ready, and then so I'm hoping that will be done within the next 2 weeks. I think it's really important to get that moving. So I'm hoping that'll be the case. One item that I've got, and we'll go for a little tour, is the parking, right? And so at that property, I guess that abuts the south pond, I think we've got to figure that out, right? Like how much parking do we want to have? Do we want to make it all parking? Dan's defined like a kayak and canoe launch. I've already seen people drive, so we're going to get better signage about that and have a dedicated boat area, and I think a dedicated canoe, kayak, right, for small stuff. Put some parking there, and as we go through the tour, we can kind of talk about that. One other item, if you know Kelsey's the person behind all things Acushnet. She reached out and has a real passion and interest for like a children's area, and we were kind of just going back and forth, not necessarily like a traditional playground that you would see at Pope Park or at a school where it's plastic, but more along the lines of, Kelsey, you can talk about it, but more along the lines of like a zoo field,
they're called natural playgrounds.
Natural playgrounds.
If you've gone to like Buttonwood Zoo, they kind of have one. So it's like logs, and the kids can jump from log to log, and like seesaws made out of logs, and stepping stones, and all sorts of like spidery web climbing rope things. If we want to do something like that, there's like the opportunities are pretty endless. But I know there's probably like safety and cost and like all that and like legal things.
So if you've been to the Riverview Park on the New Bedford side, they've got some pretty cool things. Again, it just kind of blends in.
Yeah.
We're not going to have, I think, if we start crowding things, then it loses its feel. But if it just kind of blends in.
It's nice to keep it consistent with the country feel of what Acushnet is.
And so, I guess there's a couple areas to consider, like, for parents, and it's hot, like.
Yeah, the parking lot worries me.
In a shaded area like this might be a natural place for behind a guardrail, behind the guardrails.
Yeah, it's like just the park, like, cause I have 3 toddlers and they can be runners. Yeah. So like, I just imagine parents like, oh god, the parking lot. That's the only thing.
Parking lot.
Yeah.
We actually have a more detailed drawing. I believe from the last meeting. I have it back at the station, which does extend guardrails for that reason.
Okay.
Also, the guardrails on Lake Street. I was talking to Dan Menard last week. We came down there, actually like elevating on this side of the guardrails and actually having like curbing, dedicated curbing, and then have like landings in there to separate the roads, and also to keep people going towards the crosswalks.
Yes.
Because if you leave it like this, and I just saw it, they cross right over. So the idea is to keep people crossing the street at certain locations. So we already have someone planned out, and I reach that up, give that to you, and
we can circulate it to the group. And I kind of forgot about that, but I think we designated
boating trailer parking spots for boats and trailers. Yeah, we dedicated a spot for possible gazebo down the line in the middle there, and also like I said, the guardrails to extend and trying to make it safe.
Sure, and I think so. Like Sergeant Copper and Officer Matten, we're working on. Like, I think they would be the best people to make recommendations on, the safety aspects of the guardrails. And so I wouldn't, if we're good with it, to have you just continue to work with Dan on that. And
So David, referencing guardrails as well. I was out here week and a half ago or so. I was talking to Dan, and he was talking about an access from parking lot to parking lot over the driveway easement. It may be a good idea as well to put some guardrails along that easement so that people are not driving willy-nilly through there. So that you have one dedicated.
So we've got Brad is the homeowner, right? So he's got to go through that, and we had talked about that at one point. So I want to get your input. There's got to be some definition there, right? Whether it's a split rail fence or a guardrail, whatever, something
that way
define that entrance.
That way there's a dedicated laneway betting the 2 parking areas so that people just aren't driving willy-nilly over his driveway.
And we also were talking about, we can think it through a little bit further by having a dedicated entrance and having that as just an exit. So to have an exit entrance here and that entrance down there, and then having people come out one exit.
Again, I'll defer to you all who understand the traffic patterns and how that should look and what that should be about. And I think Brad is somebody who obviously lives up the road, but I think having a defined, we had the boulders there before, right?
Right.
And that wasn't necessarily the worst thing aesthetically, but maybe it's, you know, like the guard, like a split rail fence, right? And kind of fit again with more of the character, and you can put some natural grasses. There's only so many, I think, you know, there's only certain types of plants that you can use around here, you know. So like what you've done at the sawmill property, I think is a real good, good idea of what you can do. But those natural grasses look really nice. We've had some landscapers step up who've offered to maintain some of these areas, and so we can tap into that. We said, look, we'll give you some free advertising, which I think is
I love that
cool.
idea. That was great.
And so it's like, I don't know, do you put mulch, or do you put larger stone, something that kind of, again, like more of a hardscape, to give it that natural feel. I think with mulch, like you're constantly having to turn it over, right? So maybe that's something we can rely on the landscapers to do. The other thing is lighting. We've talked about that.
Cameras.
Yep. We can do that. I think now we've got the technology to do that. I think overall, once we do the weed remediation, we'll get to that next. We'll probably have like about 25 grand left. We appropriated 75 at town meeting a few years ago. So it's things like we may have to come back in the fall to do like phase 2 to pay for some of the things like the cameras and the additional lighting and things of that nature. But I don't know. I think if there's anything else like from a punch list standpoint that we want to look at right now to get this thing, again, phase 1 to be done, now would be the time to bring that up. But I think getting the guardrails in, and defining the traffic, like the exits and entrances, and then maybe we can just look around, if there's a feeling like this would be an okay place to do, a children's area that, could be fenced in with a nice wood fence, again, to kind of, so it defines it and allows parents to just kind of relax, when they're here, not having to worry about the little ones running off. Again, this is everybody's committee here.
I think that's a great idea. Just in this area right here, you get the shade. You're far enough away from the street. But,
and you're far enough away from the water. That's the other thing.
Plus, there's picnic tables where parents can be sitting at and to keep an eye on their kids.
Again, like light activity stuff.
You said there was 2 locations for the park. Where was the other one?
Well, for consideration, you guys want to start? We can just do a little walking tour of this and check it out. So this area here is good consideration for the kids area. So you can see, we try to define I think the stone wall just really adds a lot aesthetically.
So David, in reference to the boat ramp, I've spoken to a few people who have been launching boats here recently.
Yeah.
Some people are complaining it's not wide enough.
It is what it is because it wasn't. We didn't shrink it, right? So
it's pretty much what it was. It's just now asphalt.
Yeah. It is.
They gotta get better when they're back up.
Exactly. I have no problem with it.
Yeah. So.
David, is that a hard no on the asphalt in the parking lot? It would just make it so much easier. Painting lines,
Probably,
defining parking spots.
I think I would say I don't want to say it's a hard no, but I would say let's get this thing up and running, and then that becomes a fight for another day.
Is it a cost thing primarily?
It's not so much a cost. I think there's been a feeling of like aesthetics and
You
trying
would
to
also have some drainage issues.
some drainage issues and things like that of that nature. I think we should just keep it on the table and see how it plays out. But we just, Dan just did drop more stone. And you can see people doing donuts already, and it kicks up a lot.
Maybe
of
the
dust.
lights and the cameras might. The cameras might suck that.
Maybe we can. Let's just see. like I said, I think it should stay on the table, and once we get things up and running and people see it, they go, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Will we have signage too that says that there's surveillance?
Yeah, once we get all that stuff, we can
Okay.
do that for sure. Absolutely.
I was thinking too, like, I mean, I go for walks in them with my dogs all the time, but I mean, you used to be able to go everywhere with your dog, and now there's a lot of places that either say no dogs or pick up after your dogs, but that's a consideration too, to figure out which way you go.
Yeah.
You know? Because, at the very least, pick up after your dogs. They have the little thing with the tags.
I talked to Becky.
Yeah,
talked
yeah.
to Becky Thomason, our animal control officer, and we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound naive, but I still want to believe in people doing the right thing, right? Like, let's at least give it a shot.
Right.
We got to take into account that the homeowners, right? So we'll have signage to make sure that where the boundaries are, and we want people to be respectful. I'd love to have some Adirondack chairs out here, anchored in and take them in and out. After the season, make it a nice place for people to enjoy. Again, I'm going to bet on people doing the right thing. I'm hoping, and we'll just see how it goes. And if it becomes a problem, then take it away.
Right.
I think I like to, again, try to give people the benefit of the doubt first, and then see how that plays out. Keep plugging along. Actually, how big is that? Oh yeah. This is kind of a rough. And again, Brad, you being a homeowner up there, if there's stuff that you feel you got to pay attention to. So, again, like this area where the vehicles are, with the grass is, I think that's what Dan was talking about, right, Gary? To have
An elevated bed.
Yeah, to have some plantings and make sure
Put some landscaping somewhere where it's
some railroad ties and kind of define this area here.
Yeah, the guardrail is deep.
See with that, so all that loaner, that's going to be grass, right? And we're going to put the guardrail, just like that over there, right? So the guardrail, all the way up.
Same size. The wood up. Yeah.
I think we were looking at this area here is for a defined island. There's a lot to maintain. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe it's grass. I don't know, but something to define this.
Yeah, technology to put elevated curving all the way around here. And he figured he could put some plantings in here, maybe some stone.
Yep.
And just have it like, stone being a little bit less maintenance.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we
And do that, and separate it.
Yeah, at the church that I pastor, we're replacing all the mulch beds with snow. It's a fortune to keep the mulch up.
No,
and
it's
so it makes stone look nice, or even like a wood chip that's more natural, kind of.
Right.
Something that's.
So again, this is a big area, but you can sort that out. Maybe it's not that wide. It's just enough to define it, right? And then create more parking. This is the area we were talking about, is creating some. Right, making sure that this is defined. This easement is defined here, like, so whether it's a guardrail, split rail fence, or something to make sure that this is a little break so somebody could walk across. But to make sure, then obviously we want to make sure it's done so you can still plow and get in there and all that.
Now, would you have an issue of if those guardrails like here and guardrails on the other side down, or like an exit here?
I mean, as long as nobody parked in the driveway.
Of course.
Yeah, I guess so. You mean like you're gonna try to do like an entrance here and like cross?
Entrance down there, an entrance there, and have like this as an exit. Just Dan talked about
Yeah,
that was
I
it.
mean, if you guys want to do that, that'd be cool. I mean,
I just don't want-
if it wasn't there, but I mean, if you guys
Okay.
want to, it'd be cool too. Yeah.
I mean, we can always do exit here and exit
Right.
where
It
it
might,
is, too.
I would say, honestly, probably err on the side of keeping this the
Dedicated.
road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And even if we didn't put any fencing, it's not a long distance to go from one lot to the
That's
other.
right.
You know,
That's right.
And if it was like an issue, then that was just put the fence out. And take that or something.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
And then, so this area here, like, this is prime real estate. And, you know, the easy thing, this Kelsey, this is an area that's, okay, this might be a good area for kids, right? There's no shade. It's too close to the road, right? And this could just be, there's nothing wrong with great green space.
Or
You
an
know,
outdoor auditorium.
you know, grass it up and
Yeah.
put like
a
at the
community garden
coalition,
that
right?
I
Put in like an
mentioned.
amphitheater
Yeah.
or something like that. You know, just green it up, grass it up as much as possible. It's easy to cut. You're making a few passes, and that might be the easiest thing to do from the maintenance standpoint. You could have a concert on the lawn. You could do something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lawn, right? You
Like
want to have a
the
front lawn.
library type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a
well,
nice
yeah,
front
like-
lawn. It's simple.
Yeah, that
I
would
know
be
we
cool.
talked about the community garden too, like real little garden beds, and like the community wants to come together and plant like fruits and veggies that you can take. Like I've seen that in other towns
Yeah.
before, and I always thought that was such a cool idea.
But
It wouldn't be a bad idea, like at the library, the pavilion, a little
pavilion,
somewhere.
I know,
I mean,
that's
that's
good.
not much to do
So,
because
yeah,
then you
so
could.
Cousin's a carpenter, so I'm sure
Yeah.
he would be willing to.
Wonder if
So
we could
that's
have
something
put
to
in the
think
time
about.
arts and craft afternoons or
Again, like
something
that at the
You know what I mean?
at the coalition, the project at the sawmill property. I don't know if you guys have been there, but those amphitheaters are really cool. You know, it's just some,
Yeah.
you know,
And it
some,
kind of lends itself to like people find it too. People come and do yoga, and people need programs, and it's something that we don't necessarily need to lead. Like people
Right.
find on their own
Right.
too if you build something like that. Yeah.
So again, like I don't know how the committee feels, but for now, to loam it up and just grass it up,
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
and then the second phase, then we
Figure it
start
out,
thinking
right.
about like maybe it's a pavilion, a gazebo type thing. But for now, maybe just to get this grassed up, and
Yeah.
even if you did something, you're not going to disturb a lot. You're not going to have to go back and redo the work.
One point to note, and I've seen it here many times, people doing donuts in this lawn.
Yeah, you can't.
So we may have to put some more guardrails up
Yep.
along the edge just to prevent vehicles from crossing over this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping again, like because it was unmaintained,
Right.
and it was, you
Yeah,
had
it was
rocks
free for a
everywhere.
while.
It's like, all right, whatever, right? But I think you're right. We've got to do something. If we grass this up and we call it our front lawn, then to do something, some the fence.
The more guardrails we put up, the less we're going to have to chase remowing
Yeah.
and regrassing
Right,
and all
right.
that stuff. And
That's
it's
right.
and it's going to increase safety too.
That's right.
It'll all be a lot easier.
Yeah, and so this will be, the. I guess let me ask you this. So, from a, from a procedural standpoint, we are a committee to give some direction, right? If the consensus of the committee is that this would be, call it the front lawn, and just grass it up, and then put appropriate boundaries, like split rail fence over there to make sure that nobody can kind of come in and, do that malarkey. And then this would be a nice area. Just do that. Drop some blankets, do a
Yep.
picnic, whatever. And you got a nice view there. Just keep it simple. If that's what the group wants to do. Then we'll motion in a second to call this the front lawn.
Front lawn.
I'll
Yep.
make the motion.
Call it the front lawn.
Yep.
Is all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
That's easy. I like that. Good stuff. So then, Gary, this is what you were talking about for the, right, so an entrance here. And then you could have run parking in this area there that could service here, right? So you'd have the ability to get here from both sides, right?
Yeah. Although I don't think you would have that much overflow parking.
Yeah.
You would require additional parking here, but at any given time, you might have 5 or 6 cars there.
Right. And that's the thing. Yes, we're cleaning it up, and yes, we're doing a lot of this, but I don't
We're talking about parking right here.
crazy.
That's right up in the front, right? We're talking parking right here. Right here.
Yeah.
Right here. No problem. guardrail's obviously going to be out.
Right.
And we're going to have a parking this way to kind of keep this place open. Because I think we talked about a gazebo.
I was gonna say, like, you know, there's a pad there, and if we were gonna consider a gazebo,
That's the place.
it might be over here, right? Kind of just a place to utilize that.
Maybe throw
So I guess
picnic
it's,
table
there's,
too.
again,
Yeah,
a couple
definitely.
schools
Yeah.
of thought.
Tables on this side, too, yeah.
You could do, and
Benches,
again, we
something.
could weave in some tables over there and stuff, but you've got a really awesome view here, so you could say, all right, you could bring cars up to the or grass it up, have parking here, maybe, and then you've got an area, however you guys feel, but if you think that that's a better place for parking,
Because
just
then,
pull
like
off
you said,
and
you see the
you can see the
People can go in
pull up
front of
and hang.
vehicles.
How would you
Yeah.
differentiate the difference between the parking and the lawn? Would you put stone down?
Yeah,
or just
yeah.
bare earth?
Right, but if you felt like this was better to make this parking so you can just kind of pull right in,
I think so.
and
I think
people
so.
can kind of hang out
Yeah.
and just chill in their car, stuff like that, that's fine as well.
It's killer view. If you
Yeah.
do put a gazebo over there, you don't
Yeah,
want the
yeah,
cars,
you're
you don't
right.
want the cars
Yeah.
over here.
All right, so
Is
I
this
guess-
where there was talk of maybe having like a kayak or?
Yes.
yeah, so here's the deal, right? So you've got where that pickup is.
Yeah.
We were thinking that would be the dedicated boat ramp there. On the other side, you'll see it. You've got the there's some new ships, some gravel, some more like the kayak and canoe stuff, right?
Yeah.
We'll have to put some signage there. And I don't know if you've been to the Riverview Park. If you've walked that, we put in some fence posts with rope.
Yeah.
So you could do something like that. You know, we could do it with wooden posts.
Right.
And maybe run that, like split that area. So obviously cars can't go through, and then somebody could use it almost like as a railing or something like that. But let's go back to here. So if you guys feel, the committee feels like this should be the designated parking area, then let's do that.
Yeah.
So is there a motion to?
How far down would you go with the parking lot?
Question, right, so Gary,
Yes.
I know you were talking about another exit
You know
point
what?
here?
I'm actually thinking it's probably better off not.
Not just keep one,
Just keep one.
come one in and out, okay. So,
It was the thought being if people were using this and launching boats, but they're probably going to be obviously using the boat ramp.
Right.
there,
So for this one, I would definitely say just leave it one. That one we can discuss further if you want to do a second exit,
okay.
because they're more likely to have trailer boats
Yep.
over there, and sometimes it gets tight.
And that's the thing too, you could say, Scott, you fish, right? Is this a fishing pond?
I was here fishing last week.
I don't know, like, what would be an appropriate, you don't want to have such a big parking lot, right? So is it
Maybe
like,
if you came like 12 feet off the boulders, 12 feet off the tree, and did it in the middle or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kept a little grass on either side.
Because I know most
Right,
people
one thing.
park down in that corner because it's a closer walk
Yep.
to the area to fish on the street. But I'm sure if it's a well designated area, maybe they won't park on
so we'll say,
Yeah, because the stones look nice, little grass over there, and then if you
walkway
came
you
off
could
of
move,
that,
yeah.
Here's a question for you: where would you want to have another crosswalk? Because obviously you'd want one down here.
Yeah. I don't know.
The one over there.
Be enough so you're not on the bend.
I would
right?
say right at that corner, just on the other side of the utility pole.
Okay, so
Because from what I observe fishing here quite
Yeah.
often,
that's where they cross.
most of the people I see will cross pretty much in that area to go from that pond
right.
to the
Right.
pond across the street.
So that being the case, there needs to be a split in that guardrail for people to walk through.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And there also needs to be a crosswalk there. So, as
So
far
that
as a
would be-
crosswalk, would you just want to have a painted crosswalk like we have over there?
Just gonna ask that.
Or do you want to look into those crosswalks that actually look elevated? that tends to slow down traffic a little bit.
Almost like a speed table.
It's like
Yeah,
a speed
I'll
table,
tell you
but
what,
it's not.
that would.
That's not a bad
I've heard that a
idea.
lot
Idea.
from people
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
how do you slow down this traffic?
A
Like,
speed table,
Yeah.
we just can't do it on the road because
Right.
the plows and everything else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they make those temporary ones.
We could look into that too. I mean,
You know.
but you can also have the reflective ones that do a lot in England, I believe,
Okay.
where it looks like it's an elevated table, and it just the illusion of it makes slow down.
Well, I would say,
I'll look
you know, let's
into it.
look into that and communicate that to Dan. You know, at a minimum, you can just paint it for now, and then come back at that down the road. You know?
I would suggest that you put a crosswalk on just this side of the utility pole. So you have a walking path up that way, and then you had a cut in that guardrail. And it's really a lot more handicap access too. You could just shoot right up the thing and right across. You know, if someone's not saying it's necessary.
I mean, if they're doing it next week, I can still meet with Dan's Monday
Yeah.
or Tuesday. Come down in and find out what he wants to do for brakes.
Mark it
We
out.
talked about it, but
Yeah, just come and paint it out. You know, do
Yeah.
whatever. All right. So you're saying like to do
Yeah, I
parking
mean, just-
here,
Yeah. I
roughly
mean, whatever everyone thinks, but I was
10,
thinking,
12,
yeah, come off the tree that way, you know.
Yep.
Little grass there still, from the rock and the grass there. Just make it- You don't need like, you're gonna have 50 cars parking. Something like
walking back.
I'd say a minimum of 10 feet.
Okay, and then what would you talking for technical area? Put another bed like down there. Stones.
yeah, what
separated,
are
or
this? Is that 8 or what are those? I mean, what were you thinking?
we just I don't know.
Whatever you do
Whatever
over
you
there,
guys wanna do.
whatever you
So-
do over
Right,
there.
follow it through. Yeah.
So that would be
Maybe
good.
minimum of
We're
8
just
feet. I would
parking
think.
cars. We're, like I was here last weekend with my small john boat. I've got a 12-foot john boat. The trailer is an additional, say, overall 16 feet, plus the length of my pickup truck. I parked right on the other side of that tree, in the greenscape island, just to stay out of the way. So you're also going to have to consider, if you're going to have parking here, you're going to have some additional parking for maybe, at tops, maybe 3
Trails.
trucks with both trailers.
No, I actually think this would be a great area for that. Honestly.
Yeah.
But I was thinking more towards that end, only because if you're parking your boat trailer, you're not really interested in coming here to park in the view.
You're not looking
So I mean,
or if you can pulling up a few feet. You just park back in and you're kind of pulling up.
What I typically do is I usually just drive around the circle, come up the middle, and back straight in to put my boat back up on the trailer. So wherever I park with my trailer, not really critical because we got the ring road, we got the loop road, so I can actually drive around, come up the middle, and just back it straight in right where that pickup truck is. Launch the boat and load it back up.
One thing to keep in mind with the crosswalk is having it close to parking. Just because if people park here and the crosswalk's way down there,
It might not
it's just going to be easier to hop over the people tend to be lazy, so just something to keep in mind.
do then. I mean, do we want to parking further that way?
Yeah.
Green this up, grass this up. And
I
and
think
this
you're
way
gonna have
people
people that are parking just to sit here and eat lunch and look at
Right.
the water. Then you're gonna have people that are doing the fishing or walking over there. It's almost like 2 groups of people.
Well,
You know what I mean?
the majority of people that I see park here that fish,
Right.
park in here.
Right. Yeah.
well, I was thinking there's gonna be a crosswalk there, but we're also gonna do a crosswalk right here. So even if they park either one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
either one,
Right.
All right, so just to get this area memorialized, roughly how large of a 4 or 5 car parking area?
So typically a parking space is 9 by 20, give or take. So if you're going to fit 6 cars, 60 feet, 65 feet.
Okay.
Adequate enough, 20 feet of depth, so you can park your trucks or cars or whatnot. So maybe a
we had the plan. The plan actually has
As a designated?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, then, you know,
Yeah.
if we already designated that,
We
then
can
we'll
adjust
just
that.
roll
I
with
mean,
that.
that's not-
Yeah, we'll
it's
just
stone.
roll with that then. And if
Yeah, but
that's,
it's all gonna be natural. It's not gonna be paved, right?
It's not, well, no, it's not going to be paved. It's going to be, I would say,
Right.
it's probably stones, right?
yeah, it's gonna be
Right.
like.
So if we find out down the road
You can
that
always change
people are parking on the grass because we're not enough space, and we just extend it.
Right.
I mean, the only way you're going to tell parking for trailers, I guess, would be signage.
You're gonna have to have signage, right?
Don't need it anyways.
That's what the committee want to do.
Trailer park.
Trailer parking lot.
Now, were you thinking of keeping the same road here, this road's up as it is,
This one in the middle.
metal?
I would think
I would think.
I would think so. It's beneficial for those launching boats. So we can
Yeah.
just back it right in.
Then you pull right in and then pull right out. Pull right into the long boat parking spaces.
So what would you want to do here?
You might want a green space. You might want a green space, yeah, because I can't see any reason why this little structure there.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're only driving another what?
Right.
Oh, you're saying cut this little thing right here.
Yeah,
Just
get
green
rid of
that
that
up.
altogether. There's really no need for it.
Right, right, yeah.
I mean, it looks like it gets traveled a lot, but no need for that.
All right, we're making progress. We got a lot of space here. Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah,
Maybe
so-
some, like, I know you talked about picnic tables, and I guess could be down the road, but maybe some benches too,
Yeah, totally.
Benches here and there or
Absolutely.
something, but,
Yeah, you do
So
those
I was
ones that
looking
like
at this
half
slab
a
last
tree.
weekend.
yeah.
You know, you cut them in half.
Oh,
And it's,
natural.
I love
It's
those.
pretty-
I love those ones. They're so cool.
No, it looks like it's in fair shape.
Yeah, I talked to Dan. I mean, I think it's serviceable, but by the same
Coming
token,
up there with the roots probably.
if it's not, then sometimes you.
Well, you've already got a base. There wouldn't be much to, I mean, this looks like just a slab that's sitting on top of
Yeah, the
maybe
roots
some
are-
block or something. Rip it up and
Put some
maybe move it a little bit further away from that tree. Maybe move it down a little bit. So you don't get the roots
Right.
uprooting.
Yeah, something useful.
Because it is a high point.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it'd be a perfect place for a gazebo.
I love that.
Get a nice view over the water over there and view, there.
Like that. And so, like we were saying, this could be the dedicated, like make this the boat launch.
Yeah, 'cause it's a little deeper over there than it is over there.
Yeah. So we obviously want to clean this up here. Either grass this up, right? And then, right, because you're coming out.
So you're gonna have like boat launch, kayak in the same spot, or the kayak?
So we're
it'd
thinking
be
like
two
the
separate
kayak
things, right?
and canoe launches
Over
here,
there, right.
just
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
it's
Separate, right?
a little
that makes
separate.
sense. Yeah.
And then
Then
so
the
I
boat
guess the
ramp,
question
yeah.
is, you drop your boat off and you just go through go there, right?
Yeah,
So
go
we-
right,
yeah,
right up the
So
middle.
we would
Right.
kind of want to green this up, clean this.
Yeah.
Well,
Or-
that also depends because if somebody's car topping a kayak or if they've got a kayak in the back of their truck,
Right.
they may want to be able to provide access where
Right,
they
right.
can just drop it off there.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, of course.
I don't like this road here. Well,
Yeah.
for police-wise, it's very difficult to see cars in here.
Got it.
So if we can figure something out, so that we can make this a green area, and kind of keep
You just use that other one.
This way we can see them from the road, because it's
So-
very hard at night.
So what you could do then is just make it so it's a turnout. So it's almost like a hammerhead, what we would call a hammerhead when
Okay.
we're designing roads. So just make it so that you come up a certain way, cut it off so that they can come up, back their truck into a spot to drop off their kayak, and then they can just
Go back up.
move right back up.
That would be
So you
another-
would cut off a good portion of that ring road,
Okay.
like Gary was mentioning. So they could still get a vehicle in here to car top a kayak or a canoe,
Mhm.
but not access the entire road.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And lighting would probably help with that too, if they got some lighting right here, right?
This would be a difficult area to light up.
Yeah.
Unless we put just poles. I believe there's a telephone pole, need access for it. That's on my Eversource. But again, we'd have to maybe put a pole in or something of that nature, especially with the cameras.
So I would designate. I would say like this area here has got to be part of the phase 1 to get right, because you know
A lot of
I
stuff
think it's a
happens.
big priority.
Another topic I'd like to bring up relating to signage, probably be a good idea to have a sign for no open fires.
Yes.
Yep.
I was here last weekend fishing this pond, and I saw some timbers that were right there on the gravel. Somebody
Right.
looked like they were starting a
Yep,
campfire
yep,
with a
yep.
little nip bottle next to it.
Yeah.
And taking the homeowner into
Right.
consideration.
Right.
You get a dry season. There's
Right.
a lot of woods. There is some wetland, but there's a lot of woods. But
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's-
There's always a potential of a hazard.
Right. We don't need that.
You know.
We don't need that. Okay. So, I guess before, so when Dan, we've got those original plans, but I think what we want to do here is, right, is kind of cut off this, right?
Yeah.
Cut that off there, and then figure out how to make that a little bit easier, right?
The reason for the trails was to get people
And then
to fish
marking,
beside the pond.
marking that.
But I can understand you have concerns with
Do you-
people
do you
going
have
back
the
there,
cat
but that trail goes that far.
Dan does.
Yeah.
I think Dan does.
Like where it comes out.
Okay.
And then across
Do a
the
little bit of that.
All right.
I mean, I do
pretty
that all
close to the
day.
property line,
Awesome.
but, like,
In my spare
other
time.
way.
How about Tom Davis? Any?
I think we had voted to make that part of like phase down the road, just because of the acts. Like until we get the walkways up further, that's a hard one to encourage people to get to. But if we get the walkways all the way up, then you can do something there.
Because I looked into fountains.
Oh yeah, okay.
So-
At a minimum, we could look at the fountain.
Yeah. So a fountain for that pond, 2 horsepower pump, ranges anywhere from $12,000 to $16,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you're that's if it's closer to your power source. If
Mm-hmm.
you're going further away from your power source, from what people at Solitude told me, I guess electric cable's getting pretty expensive. So the longer you make it, the more expensive. From what they said, you could go as much as $20,000. If you want to do things with lighting with the fountain, you want to get real fancy. Of course, that can go up.
The Bellagio. Of
Yeah, but generally, a typical fountain would be about $12,000 to $16,000.
All right. Well, I think as we said, like Tom Davis would be something down the road to consider. But I think it might be like a fun thing to have, And maybe there's other alternatives, or there's grants that we could get for that. But I think it would definitely keep the water circulating.
Is it
Right.
aeration? Is that what that's for?
I
Okay.
think there's like an aesthetic appeal to that as well. It's kind of cool, right?
Dave, you mentioned earlier Solitude was, so we're planning on doing the water cleaning.
Yeah, so we'll get so Scott will talk to us about that. So I guess
Another thing I'd like to bring up too,
sure, please.
trash.
Yes.
So I know we used to have Boy Scouts come out here every once in a while. I think it was on Earth Day, which I think is today, or is it tomorrow? Saturday. And they would come out here and clean up. I don't know if they currently do that. That's something we may want to look into. I don't know if we want to put barrels out here, or I know Dan was mentioning that with his schedule, it's kind of tough for him to get out here and
Right.
remove any trash bags and so forth. But
Right.
walking around the ponds, you'll see that, especially along the road,
Yep.
cans, bottles, nip bottles.
So you just want like an initial sweep, because I run that Spruce Up Acushnet page too, and I back before COVID, we did one here on Lake Street, and we got a ton of stuff. We did one done a few, and then COVID happened and things just kind of stopped, and I haven't really kind of restarted it since. But I would love I could do that. I could set a day up to just clean up Lake
if
Street
we
again
could do
for
it-
a pre
Right, if we could do it once a
construction.
month, I think once a month would be
okay.
great, because as long as you stay on top of it, it won't be so bad. But if you let it go a year, 2 years, 3 years, now you got a lot more trash to pick up.
Sure, yeah, I can take that on.
Okay. Great. It's good. Good point. We'll put that down. So why don't we just show you where the walkway. And obviously, like this stuff you can clean up. Clean this up. Jack, if you've got suggestions on things.
Yeah, that was my first time here, so
And this was all
taking it all in. But
this was all, you know, there wasn't access here.
I know when you walk near the old song, and then there's almost like a spot like that goes in the water where there's like a little deck that goes
Yeah,
out. You know, something like that. Where people
Yeah,
stuff out
yeah,
there.
that would be
kinda
nice. Actually, I remember that sawmill when it was a sawmill.
Oh yeah, me too.
But that's the thing, like, if
There's
we
a lot
can
of fishing in there.
do some things like put a bench here or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of little. That would be a place where you put the sign and put with the put a little thing that
Kind
you
of
go out
fish
there
in the pond.
Right, yeah. That was great. I'm gonna try that.
No, I was walking this last week. It's nice out here.
My kids
Pretty
are
muddy over here, but this
Kind of you get a feel for
Yeah,
what you want to do, and you know, get this.
Again, might want to put some gravel or
Yeah,
something.
we'll get this squared away. Obviously, if there's any, from an environmental standpoint, do's and don'ts, but you know, the wood chips and trying to keep it as natural as possible. Obviously, keep it as natural as possible. Define the walkway, and it loops around. You know, it loops around. Put signage, and it's just a great area. You know,
So that'll eventually connect to right where the
onto the other side where the
Right.
dock is.
Yeah,
It loops
that's
all
awesome.
around. I walked it, but you know,
Yeah.
I'm like, what? So I'm
Yeah.
looking. I'm like, where the hell am I? For
right.
But I think with the appropriate
Yeah.
pathway, and we'll be able to
That's awesome.
define it and keep it simple. You know, I don't know if it's like a quarter mile, but it's like a nice, fun little area.
all the stuff is just all dead.
David,
Yes, sir.
I want to point something out.
Yeah.
You can probably see it from here, but it looks like a little bit of a landmass in the pond.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the thing. About a year and a half ago, that didn't exist.
Interesting.
So I was checking it out this past weekend in a boat.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine told me that there's a otter that lives in these areas.
Huh.
I'm thinking that might be an otter habitat. Because the reason why I say that is because it's not like your typical, like Davis Pond, where the earth just kind of,
Yeah.
you know, the weeds die off, they settle to the bottom, they just keep building on top of each other. Before you know it, now you've got ground in the middle of the pond. So the sides are sloping on that. They slope up, and then it flattens at top. And then when I went around the side of it, the base of it actually has a hole about that big around. So I'm thinking maybe that could be some otter habitat.
I think somebody took photos and shared them to the Acushnet page about an otter
Really?
recently. I feel it. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it.
mascot,
But like,
that's what it is.
We got Sunny the dog. You know, we got, it's like Caddyshack. in the
Sponsor
goat.
otter.
The next time I spoke to
Yeah,
Solitude, I asked them if they had ever
GoFundMe for
seen
the
anything
otter.
like that.
We need a name. We need an otter
They're
name.
not aware of anything like that, but I made them aware that it's in this small pond, so that
You're a
when you go
mascot.
ahead and do the weed
Yeah.
remediation, they'll keep that in mind.
Have you, in your travels, have you,
Seen otter in the area, but I haven't seen like a little. I don't know. I've never heard of like them making their own little habitat, but it's
I usually beavers do, but we
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have beavers this far
Yeah.
down here.
that's interesting.
so I got a couple people have asked about like stocking the ponds and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yep.
he was on there in the winter on
Huh.
Lake Street.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that something that would be this area conducive to that, or is that?
So it depends. Most people when they stock are doing like trout,
Yep.
which are cold water species. That my guess is these are warm water ponds, so they wouldn't do well because the dissolved oxygen gets too low during the summer. So
Yeah. Again,
I
not
think
my expertise, I was asked
you
about it, so-
probably have most warm water species that people would want to fish for anyway. So you're probably not worth stocking because they're already in here. But
Got it. Okay.
my guess is it would
Yeah.
be too warm for trout.
Because in here you've got largemouth, perch, crappie,
Yeah, so you already have all
pickerel.
the main
Catfish.
main species here.
Yeah, so yeah. Although, I think there used to be trout
Yeah, a long time ago.
down at Leonard Street. So past the fish ladder, in the river from behind the school all the way down through Leonard Street and Hamlin Street, I think there's still trout in there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe the bigger pond could support trout.
Yeah, if
It did at one point in time.
Yeah,
if
it
it's
did.
deep enough or it has like a spring, it's spring fed at the bottom, it could stay cold enough that they could all hunker there when it gets really hot. In the summer.
Something to think about down the road.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think as we get into like the parking, this area here, maybe Scott, maybe some volunteers who might be available during the day to talk to Dan, and kind of go over what we talked about. Gary, right? And anybody else from the committee who wants to do that? As much as I'd love to be a one-man show, that's not what this is about, if we can do that, we can spend the time with Dan and kind of just communicate what we went over. I think critical part of phase one is to get this situation squared away. Even if it's just, putting some rocks back, just to define it until we get it squared away so people aren't driving in here, to block off access temporarily.
You know if we have any aerial photography provided by drones?
I have a drone.
Here we go.
Because that could also help in
I was going to
developing
bring it
parking
too.
and so forth. Again, that's another thing that through my work I've done a lot. Work with
I think
aerial
that's
photography.
that's
drones.
that's the beauty of this group here is that we've got a lot of expertise that they can lend to the process. So we were saying before, like with
Yeah,
the
no, I
kayaks
can.
and
I'll come out
canoes,
here. I gotta get my battery.
put the signage
I have my
here and
charger.
define this
My
area.
charger.
Define this, and then figure out the next step. Just start getting people used to what the pattern should be, like the boundaries and all that kind of stuff.
Because I think your biggest thing is you're still going to have people that are going to want to park in the middle of these grassy islands here.
Right.
Trying to discourage that is going to be really tough.
Yeah. But look, at the end of the day, if this, I don't know, is there anything wrong with having people park here as they're dropping their stuff off? Like, it's kind of a dead space, right? Like, as long as
The only thing is if you put some people there, you'd have to redesign it. But
Do we have two launches here?
sorry,
so there's one here, and then we were thinking like put the boats there, and that's more for like the kayak canoe stuff.
That's always been a launch.
are they going to do what they did over there? And sorry,
I don't
No,
know
you're
how
fine.
far you
Just
can go
snuck in.
down there. They just want to define it,
Okay.
like I'm not sure what
Yeah,
we can do from an environmental standpoint.
I don't think there'd be any need for
Okay.
asphalt. Your biggest problem there, so the water's not ideal. It's manageable, but it's not ideal. So when you back a truck in there, you're usually, depending upon the length of your truck, the length of your trailer, you might have your front wheels of your truck
Right.
pretty much at the edge of the water. So people will have to put their truck in four-wheel drive to get out of there so they don't get stuck in the muck. I know in the past, I don't know who's done it, but people have thrown gravel over there
Right.
to try to, at least get a little bit of a hard bottom there. So,
I think we can define, right, from an environmental standpoint, having gravel, is that? Probably have to talk to the contract person. Yeah, so we'll talk to Pat.
yeah, I've
That is-
spoken to Pat
If we
about
can
it.
define it, I think that would make sense. It would make it
Because you
easier.
don't want to asphalt. You don't want to.
no,
No.
not that. But you also don't want to have the truck all the way in the
You'll be
water.
like, you'll be
Right.
out rescuing
Well, so I had mentioned to Pat, what would it take to just, bring an excavator in and kind of, scallop out, make it a little bit deeper so that you got more of a transition. Because when you get past that grass, you're talking maybe 2.5 feet, which is adequate enough to launch most boats. But the problem is getting the boat out there to actually launch it, because it's so shallow.
There's I think it's a state grant program that is about like fishing access, and they fund projects like boat ramps and stuff too. You actually, further down the line, thought that to do something a little bit more.
I know this one would be part of phase 1. We did talk about extending that walkway all the way down at some point. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
That'd be
Totally.
awesome.
No, I think to get that as far up as we can to make it safe and
So is there enough real estate to actually do that? Because as you get down a little bit further, your pond is getting a little bit closer to your roadway. So
I think Dan thinks it can be done. And he'll go as far as he can take it. I'd love to see it at a minimum guardrails.
Yeah.
Like if it's not a walkway, if it's guardrails. We've been playing with fire over the years. Especially in the wintertime. We've seen it, Gary.
This actually makes me nervous right now.
Right.
Those guardrails.
I think that's it, right? I think we've got a plan in place. Oh, Scott, give us an update on the weeds.
So Solitude is getting ready to bring forth the NOI. They need somebody to do the signatures.
Yes, talk to Jamie about that. We'll take care of that.
And then we also need somebody from the city of New Bedford.
That's
since
right.
They're considered the landowner.
That's right.
So we
Yep.
need to,
We'll get that moving as well.
Yep. And the quicker we can get that done, the quicker Solitude can get the permits in, and we can get it scheduled. They're still shooting for late July, early August,
Okay.
which is typically the time of the year that they do the weed remediation.
Okay.
And how are they going to do that? I know there's different ways.
So they're going to do it chemically.
Okay.
Again, you could go in there with a machine,
Right.
with a rake,
Right.
but typically what happens there is you're raking that stuff up, you're breaking it up,
Right.
and you're just kind of spreading it out. So it'll grow back, but not as fast. But
Right.
if you treat it chemically, it'll all fall to the bottom.
And they're going to do all of them, or what's the plan?
So the plan is to do all three.
Okay.
I know Pat had mentioned, why don't we just do one, see how it works, but Solitude's been in the business a long time. They know what they're doing.
That's
I'm
great.
pretty sure, that the first application will probably work very well, but it's something that you're going to have to maintain over time.
Mhm.
So I don't know if, the DPW wants to, take on that effort.
Yeah.
Maybe something, we can look, a year or two down the road.
How often do you have to maintain it?
Well, Solitude being a business will tell you that they want you on a yearly plan, because of course
Yeah,
they're in the
yeah,
business
yeah,
to
they're
make
like-
money.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
I could see realistically after the initial treatment, maybe doing some other treatment 3 years later,
Right.
because I don't think the weeds will grow back that quickly. Because the way that the milfoil is here now, City of New Bedford hasn't done anything to these ponds.
Right.
And we're talking. I've fished these ponds for decades.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it get worse and worse and worse. So we're talking about decades of neglect. If we manage the ponds on every 3 years, keep the weeds at bay a little
Right.
bit.
And it wouldn't be to the level that we're doing now.
Right.
So you're looking at if we were to build
Right,
in,
it's low.
through CPC or state grants,
Mhm.
a routine maintenance plan. It obviously wouldn't be as costly. It wouldn't be the $33,000.
Right.
Right.
And you could
But
also
it's-
explore other methods.
Right.
So the initial method of treating it chemically will probably, really shock it very well. You may have to dredge it because all that stuff is going to eventually settle to the bottom. So that's another option that we may have to think of. But after you treat it chemically, I would think 3 years down the road, if you go in there with a rake or a machine that looks like a mini excavator
Mhm.
on a barge with a little, paddle
Right.
wheel.
Yeah.
And just go in there and rake that stuff up and throw it on the shore, dewater it, and then truck it off somewhere.
Now,
All
will this ever be safe for swimming? Is this not? Is that not a thing? I know it
I
used
was
to
a
be,
little
right?
kid. That
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
like,
a lot of
we
stuff
had
I did as a little
somewhere
kid.
to swim in Acushnet, so I was always like,
I
that's
mentioned
cool.
that to Pat as
Yeah.
well, because a lot of people on All Things Cushion
Yeah.
have been
Yeah, yeah.
asking, hey, can we,
But we all just got like we can't go to Fairhaven anymore or something, right? Like they took that away. Like there's only Fairhaven residents now.
Oh,
There was
West
some place
Island?
in yeah.
West Island.
So like
So the water quality of these ponds aren't that bad.
No.
The one test that we did not do because we didn't think it was necessary at the time was a fecal coliform test. That's something that Pat, wants us to explore because he thinks, if people are talking about wanting to swim here, then we may need to.
Right.
Well, I still swim there every year.
Yeah.
I jumped off the pump house last year.
Yeah.
Still, so I'm in there all the time, and I'm fine. I mean, my wife would argue.
And Pat also wanted to explore the possibility of doing a toxicology study on some of the fish. That'll also give you an indication of
Oh, yeah.
how clean the water
Right,
actually
right,
is. So there's there's a bunch of options that we can look at to see if it is possible to swim.
Right.
I had mentioned to Pat, can we allow wading? If a fisherman wants to throw on some waders and wade around the pond, and Pat's response was, as far as I know, there's been no restrictions on wading.
Right,
so, I think once we get this pretty well established, we're going to need to put something out there to let people know what you can and can't
Yes.
do.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where the signage, right?
Yeah.
We've got some signage.
Yeah.
I don't know how nowadays you can do stuff with like QR codes.
So you could do a social media page for Lake Street, the Lake
Right.
Street Facebook page, like
Right.
literally
Yeah.
would be awesome.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
great
That's
resource.
Well, I think that's it for tonight, unless there's any other low-hanging fruit.
Great job. Really
Yeah.
great job.
Yeah.
This has been,
Yeah.
look, the DPW with limited resources,
Yep.
they got in here and it was
Knocked
just,
it out of the park.
it was just,
Fast.
bang, bang, bang. They were down here busting it, and it's a great group. And it was great to see, these guys work hard, but to be able to do a project and then look back and say, hey, you know what I mean? Like, that's a great way to end your week.
And you also mentioned bathymetric maps.
Yes.
So I spoke to a few engineers, and to do something like that would be pretty costly if you wanted to get really accurate.
Okay.
I would suggest if you want to really cut costs, just get somebody out there on a boat,
Yeah.
take an anchor, and, 1
The
foot
whole
increments on
point
an
is just to
anchor.
give people an idea, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure in the wintertime, if it ever does freeze, right, people say, oh, geez, well, I really
Oh,
want to
yeah,
go
you-
skate there, right? But if you know that it's,
Right.
5 feet
Right.
or 6 feet, not that big of a deal. Like I always think like Tom Davis Pond would be the ultimate place
Yeah.
to do ice skating,
Right.
because it's shallow in nature. But I think just to give people an idea of what's
Yeah.
here and how deep it is or how deep it's not, might be a good thing to do over time, trying to figure that out. So, they may. Yeah, they might. We have to go check that.
Uh,
Jump on your boat
the
and
state
just-
doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
for-
I always heard it was like
the
16
Division of
feet
Fisheries and
No,
Wildlife
deep
doesn't have a
is-
map.
yeah,
for
no.
Lake Street.
in the middle.
It's probably, what, 12 feet, maybe?
That one's deepest is 12.
Like 12
Yeah,
feet.
is that right?
14
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, isn't there a channel that goes from the
Yeah.
culvert all the way to the back?
There
where
is,
the
and that's what he's
pump house is?
talking about.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it in the summertime, like the dock spot where it flows.
Mhm.
It pretty much goes from the culvert's house right across your area, and then straight down that side to the river.
All right.
I know this pond here is no deeper than 6 feet.
This is the safest bit.
And that's good to know. Like I just think just basic signage like that, right? So always
Constantly water moving around.
be careful. All right. So what we'll do is we'll get with Dan. And we've got a little subcommittee of Scott, Gary. If anybody else, I'll just put
I don't know
Blast
about
it
during
out.
the day. I can try to get here if I know.
to kind of go over.
Well, I was thinking
Guardrail
actually,
stuff, yeah.
I think early next week, sometime like at night, meet Dan like 4 o'clock right after he gets out
Okay.
of work. If that's possible.
And he may be ready to go.
Yeah, just so he has an idea.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, he has his own plans too, and it sounds like very similar
very similar to what we
to what we talked about. I mean, we didn't talk about this area here, so he'd like to know about that, and same thing.
And I think, like with everything, not everybody's going to be 1,000% happy, 100% happy,
Yeah.
but I think I'm a big believer is the new problem better than the old problem,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
It's better and better. It's better than
Yeah.
it was. It's
what
going
we're
to keep
doing
getting better.
is going to be so
Ignore
much
the
better,
haters.
and we'll just continue to tweak around the edges. But maybe Kelsey, if you would talk to some parents about like what a kids area would look like
Yeah,
over there, and maybe Brad has
I've already
something,
started.
you know, start thinking about that. And you know, again, I don't think this is going to turn into, you know, Six Flags overnight. It's going to be an area that's going to be
Yeah.
come and go. You're going to see what you get. You know,
That's been one concern from other fishermen that I've spoken to here. You know, because I've been going around, I've been speaking to a few people, telling them, you know, what we're doing and you know what we're what our vision is to improve this area. And they're like, oh, geez, you know, now we're going to have a whole bunch of people. I said, no, it's not going to be like that at all. We're just, you know, we're just making it more family friendly.
That's right.
You know, a place where people can, you know,
The people that fish come fish anyway.
Right.
There's
They're gonna do
always,
it
they're
anyway.
always,
People are
right?
going to do stuff. It's like, I mean, I think in the end it'll be better off.
Yeah, it's an improvement of the town.
It might be a little bit of a sugar rush, and over time, it'll be, you know, back to quiet. But I think it's just great seeing people here now. You know, I mean, it just is, it's pretty cool. So.
People keep, like, pick up after themselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just,
Well, I think once you get the cameras in here, you're gonna.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And if we can get something going, that'll,
Yeah, I can do that on like a monthly basis or something. Yeah, for sure. I'll at least do like we can do like an initial sweep like soon, like for the spring or something. And then we'll try to keep it going.
All right, great. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
And then we'll get another meeting scheduled. I don't have a time for another meeting, but we'll get in a little bit more of a rhythm now. Now that we got some stuff to talk about. So, motion to adjourn. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? All in favor?
All right.
Carries. Great. Thank you all.
thank you.